Okay, well, welcome back, guys. Thanks for coming back and watching. I'm here in Bankstown, in Sydney Bankstown. I've got a fairly big flight today, quite a lot of flying. First leg is a repositioning empty flight. We're flying from Sydney Bankstown to Narracourt in South Australia, and I'll show you what that looks like. De-ice, pressure low, annunciator test off. Okay, so here we are. We've got, I'll just turn the weather radar on as well there, and you can see any weather en route. So it's a fairly big flight. If I zoom it out, there's Australia, and we're going from the east coast here, from Sydney right across to basically down here in South Australia. The South Australian border is here, so it's just beyond the border into South Australia.
Line up runway left.
Line up left, Yankee Kilo Kilo. Bankstown ground, Kilo, okay, X-ray on Bravo, request taxi for Foxtrot.
Okay, so it's about a 3 hour, just over a 3 hour flight, so big long flight time. So we've got total, we've put full fuel on board, and so we'll just have a look at that. So we're going to reset the fuel now, 86 gallons on board. And in terms of the weather en route, it looks pretty good actually. The other day when I came back, it was a lot of weather, thunderstorms, icing, all sorts of things. I should have had the camera on that day, but today it looks pretty good. I thought we'd just have a quick look at some of the for-flight stuff. Just have a look at the different data that it provides. So firstly, if I go over to flights here, we've got Bankstown, Narracourt, and you know, I've got my weight in there and the profile. It's a fairly direct route. I'm going IFR, but it's a fairly direct route. I'm not going along the airways because it's a little bit clunky and ends up being a lot bigger distance. Cruise altitude is 10,000 feet. Just having a look at the winds there. I mean, basically we've got stronger and stronger headwinds as we get higher. And we don't really get any improvement in the time. The minimum time there is 3 hours and 9 minutes, and so I can go 8,000 feet or 10,000 feet. I'll go for the 10, a little bit higher, a little bit smoother. So that's what we filed. Okay, we're all set. Let's get our clearance and get out of here. Bankstown Ground, g'day, X-ray 62, Diamond DA62, IFR, Bankstown to Narracourt, 1 POB, Nav Air. Receive Golf and request taxi and airways clearance, ready on reaching.
X-ray 62, Bankstown ground, taxi holding point Alpha 1, runway 11 center, will advise clearance.
Taxi holding point Alpha 1, runway 11 center, X-ray 62. Okay, let's go. Taxi lights on, map. We'll zoom it right in so we can see where we're going. We're closed up here, so we've got to go around this way. So it's a big flight. But plenty of time to talk en route.
X-ray 62, clearance available.
X-ray 62.
X-ray 62, clear to Narracourt via Cadham, flight plan route. Bankstown 9 departure. By SID 3000, squawk 4242.
Cleared to Narracourt via Cadham, flight plan route, Bankstown 9 departure, climb via SID 3000 and squawk 4242, X-ray 62.
X-ray 62, contact tower ready at the holding point.
Will do, X-ray 62. Okay, we're going to Alpha 1 holding point, runway 11 center. Got some aircraft landing now. Bankstown Tower, g'day, X-ray 62, holding point Alpha 1 ready.
X-ray 62, sure, hold position.
Hold position, X-ray 62.
X-ray 62, line up runway center and wait.
Line up runway center and wait, X-ray 62. So I won't put my landing light on yet. I'll just check right and left. Fuel pumps come on. Pitot and landing lights stay off. We don't want to overheat the pitot, and landing light we'll put on when we're clear for takeoff. Out. All right, line up and wait. Everything looks normal. I go heading mode. And we're ready to go.
X-ray 62, report passing 1,500, runway centre, cleared for takeoff.
Runway center clear for takeoff, Wilco, X-ray 62. Okay, landing lights on, pitos on, so everything is on, flaps are set, everything looks good. Parking brakes released, let's go. Disregard. Windsock check. Alright, power set.
November,
All looks normal, airspeed's alive, 50, cross checked.
Right around India X-ray November.
India X-ray November, you can turn early crosswind.
India X-ray November.
Rotate, brakes. Positive rate, gear up. Got an aircraft ahead.
India X-ray November, downwind, touch go.
India X-ray
Alright,
November.
we're 300, clear of obstacles, positive rate, speed's good, get the flaps out.
Zulu Mike, holding point Bravo 1, ready for choppers north departure.
Zulu Mike, Bankstown Tower, hold position.
Doing a Bankstown 9 departure, so we're going to make a left turn. Clear. Flight level change. Start to bring the power back now to climb power. Max continuous. There
India
it
X-ray
is.
November, runway left, clear, touch and go.
Alright, let's clear, touch go. India X-ray November.
And we're not to pass through 1,500 until we're established on 290. So we'll bug 290, keeping a lookout. And we'll pop the autopilot on now, looks good.
Zulu Mike, line up runway centre and wait.
Line up runway center.
Good to have a look at the winds at this point as well, just to see whether you're going to need to correct for that 290. It looks pretty light, virtually no wind. Track is 290 at the moment, so that's good. X-ray 62 passing 1,500.
X-ray 62, thanks, contact city departures 118.4, see ya.
Departures 1184, X-ray 62 south. Sydney departures, g'day, X-ray 62, Bankstown 9 departure, passing 1,800, climbing 3,000.
X-ray 62 departures identified when maintaining 3,000, clear direct Chatham.
We're maintaining 3,000, direct Chatham, X-ray 62. Alright, so I'll get Chatham ready to go. We're 2,000 for 3,000, and we're going to be maintaining 3,000. Keeping a lookout for aircraft. We'll get our climb, rate of climb a little bit faster now. Now that we're in controlled airspace, it's good to have it a little bit lower when you're not in controlled airspace so that you can see any other traffic, because when you're climbing at 96 knots, it's quite a high nose attitude. And you really can't see much out the front, so it's extra important to have a good look at your traffic screen. So what I just normally do is climb at a little bit of a lower nose attitude initially, just while we're not in controlled airspace, and then once we're up in controlled airspace, I'll just try and get the climb done as quick as we can. We're maintaining 3,000 now, so let's go direct Chatham, direct Enna, and nav Chatham, GPS is green, and we're captured 3,000. Low level cloud here, quite nice actually. So we're going to head to Chatham, that's our
31 super departures.
westbound departure waypoint. So the flight planning requirements require you to plan westbound via Chatham when you're leaving to the west. And it's a little bit annoying because it's not actually on our route, so we're actually going out to Chatham and then setting course for pretty much Narracourt from there. You can see there's only a little bit of weather.
X-ray 62, climb 5,000.
Climb 5,000, X-ray 62. Okay, we'll go up to 5. Climb power. And now that we've taken off and we're out of the zone, we'll get rid of our lights and our pumps. 1, 2, and confirm that we've done everything. Gear, flaps, pumps, climb power. Alternate air's off, and we're at warm temperatures. Landing lights are now off. And we're through to blue sky pretty much.
So 62, climb 10,000.
Climb 10,000, X-ray 62. Okay, 10,000 is set, flight level change 96 knots, we're on the way up. We've got a message, airspace ahead, that's fine. We're in controlled airspace. So up we go, and basically then our plan is to fly over Chatham and then set course for Naracoorte. And what we're going to do, what I tend to do in the climb stage, which is where we are now, is I like to just do a bit of a log. So coming back to this log, which I showed you before, what we'll do now is we'll put in a couple of things. Now, I'm terrible at remembering my departure time, but luckily the G1000 records it for you. So my departure time was 0213. So takeoff was 0213. My start time I've recorded elsewhere, so I'll get that in a minute. And then I'll put here landing time and a shutdown time. And so 0213 goes here, and then what I'll basically do is just add these times up, so that what this is saying is based on the book values, this is when you should get to each waypoint, and then you can compare that to the performance you're actually getting on the day. And I'll also compare the winds and the ISR and various other things, making sure I was at flight level about 10,000 feet, flight level 100. And so basically you can compare book value to the actual performance of the plane, and that would flag you, something's, if my times are wrong or my fuel's out, something's not right, start to investigate why that might be. And usually it's because the winds are not as forecasted. Usually that's what happens. I might leave it there for now, and we'll come back in the cruise. I was going to practice a simulated engine failure. I like to practice those sort of things when I'm just doing a private flight, no passengers on board, just to help stay proficient and make sure I remember the memory items. But then, it's just the more you practice these things, the more prepared you are if it ever does happen. So we'll do a practice engine failure and have a chat about a few things along the route. Talk then. See ya. Turns out 10,000 feet is a good altitude. We're sitting nicely on top of this cloud layer here. It's probably maybe tops a couple of thousand feet below us. Over the Blue Mountains, pretty common to get the cloud sort of sitting on top of the mountains, and so we're just sitting nicely on top of that, rather than smashing in and out of it. Much more comfortable up here at 10,000. So we'll continue on route here, and I'll check in with you guys a bit later. See you then. Okay, well, I thought I could tell you a little bit more about today's flight. So, like I said, I'm flying empty. I'm flying private under Part 91, just over to Naracoorte, and I'm going to fly some people from Naracoorte up to Condobolin in sort of midwestern New South Wales there, and then I'll drop them off, and then I'll head back to Bankstown. I'll be flying into Bankstown fairly late, so it'll be some night flying, which I was pretty keen on. I quite like flying at night. Always think the night hours count for a bit more. It's that bit more challenging, and so I quite enjoy the night flying. I just want to thank my wife, who has packed me a bit of a lunch here, because it is a lot of flying today, and there wasn't much time to eat before I came. So I've got some great, pretty nice food here actually. I didn't actually have a look at what I had, but I've got a pastry, a snail pastry, and I've got something in here. Have a look at this. What is it? Oh wow, some sort of vegetarian sausage roll or something. I'm actually wondering how I'm going to eat this pastry in the plane without dropping any crumbs. So what I'm going to do, I've actually got I brought a bag, so I'm going to eat over the bag so that any crumbs will drop into the bag. Got some fruit, got some Pringles and some chocolate. Wow, oh wow, more chocolate. Okay, got heaps of food. It's awesome. So thanks to my wife for this. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty long day flying. We're going to be getting into Bankstown fairly late tonight. I'll get some breaks in between the various legs, so that's nice. And we'll be getting into narrow court with a bit of time, so I'll get a bit of a break at narrow court. It's a small runway, only 18 metre wide runway, and I think they have a lot of sort of recreational flying going on there, a nice aero club, and so hopefully we'll have the videos on, the camera on for landing there. It is funny when you land into a small, a narrower airstrip. It really does affect where you flare, and you tend to flare a bit too early while you're a bit too high, and I think that's the way around it goes. But anyway, it definitely affects your judgment about your distance from the ground. I noticed that the other day when I flew in there. So anyway, we've got quite a long time to go. Must be, why don't I just have a look at that? So what do we got? 2 hours 52. Still to go. Lots of time to eat and relax. So I'll check in with you guys later when I'm going to have had a bit of food, and I'll run through the simulated engine failures, and we'll have a look at the process. Anyway, talk then. See ya. Okay, welcome back. We've still got a fair way to go. We've got 2 hours 10 to go. So we're about an hour into the flight. I tell you, I'm quite amazed at myself. I ate that sausage roll, that vegetarian sausage roll, and I didn't get a single bit of pastry crumb on me. Eating over the bag was the way to go. Amazing. What we're going to do is we'll talk through it first, and then we'll go through the drill. So basically we're going to pull the throttle back on one engine. We'll just pull it back gently. It's okay to do that on these engines because they're liquid cooled, so they won't be, they won't have a problem with the throttle being pulled back to idle. The liquid will keep the engines at a good temperature. And then we'll run through the engine failure drill. We'll run through the memory items, and then we'll run through the checklist items, and we'll demonstrate how the aircraft just continues to fly on one engine and what sort of performance we get on one engine. So right now on two engines, I'm at 88% power. I've got 183, somewhere between 183, 184 knots as our true airspeed. We've got a 13 knot headwind, so we've got a ground speed of only 170 knots, which is why this flight's a bit longer than I would have liked. And we're cruising at 10,000 feet. So let's just see how that compares to one engine performance. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just get straight into it. So you'd normally fly an autopilot, so I'll leave autopilot on to start the drill, and we'll get autopilot off as part of the process. So let's just say we're cruising along, and then we start to, and I'll just do it gently, but we'll start to lose one engine. One engine's starting to die. Power's coming back. You'll hear a beep, beep, beep. That would normally happen with an engine failure. That happens because I put the throttle to, I'll be putting the throttle to idle, and it's beeping to tell me you don't have the gear down and you got the throttle at idle. So it thinks I'm landing, but it'll be a little bit annoying in the background, but we'll just have to deal with it for a while. There's that
check
beeping.
Gear.
So it's saying check gear. Okay, so what's happened? We've had an engine failure.
Check
We're right back at
gear.
idle here on the left now, and first thing
gear.
I'm going to do is get the autopilot off. Okay, what's happening? I've lost an engine, so I'm using a lot of
Check gear.
controlling with my right foot on the rudder here. It doesn't need a huge amount of force at the moment.
Check
I'm
gear.
going to power up fully on what would be both engines,
Check
but because
gear.
I'm idle here, I'm going to have to do it on the right engine. I'm going to check my drag, so
Check
my gear's
gear.
up and my flaps are up. So I've minimised my drag.
Check gear.
I'm going to identify what foot is dead, that's my left foot, and I'm going to be checking with the left
Check gear.
throttle here to see that the left engine is the engine that's failed.
Check gear.
And then I'm going to decide whether I'm going to try and fix the problem or feather the engine.
Check
Now,
gear.
the first thing I'd do is I'd look at the engine. I've got a propeller that's spinning. I've
Check
got no
gear.
oil or fuel or anything sort of obvious as to coming out of the engine. There's no smoke.
Check gear.
Looks like the engine's still turning, so I'm not. It'd probably be worth fixing. We're not straight after
gear.
takeoff. We don't need to feather it straight away. So let's try and fix this problem. I'm not
Check
needing to climb,
gear.
so I'm not going to be looking for blue line and climbing. I'm just going to try and maintain altitude 10,000, and that's what we're
Check
doing.
gear.
Now, I could put in a bit of rudder trim here, just to
Check
take the pressure
gear.
off my foot, but I'm going to keep my foot in the same position so I know which I don't get confused which engine's dead.
Check gear.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and fix the problem. So to fix the problem, the first thing I'm going to check is, I've checked the engine visually. Let's have a look at it on here. So left engine's dead.
Gear.
Left engine looks pretty normal. Oil pressure looks normal. Oil temperature looks normal. Coolant, gearbox, everything looks pretty normal.
Gear.
I'm going to check my fuel. So I'm going to say, okay, how's the fuel looking? On the left
gear.
side, it looks fine. I've got fuel, so it's not out of fuel. So let's turn our fuel pump on. So left fuel pump comes on, and let's also, that hasn't fixed it, let's also cross-feed the left engine from the right side. So left engine is now feeding from the right tank. So I'm now cross-feeding. That hasn't fixed the problem. So fuel didn't do it. Air. So let's think maybe the air's iced up, maybe the intake's iced up, or maybe there's a blockage. So let's put the alternate air on and let's see if that fixes it. That hasn't fixed it. I'd probably cycle the throttle here as well, just to try and see if there was something there. And let's say that hasn't fixed it.
Gear.
Spark. Now I can actually, so spark is, on this plane is really just the ECU. So on the left side engine, I could switch it to the channel A.
Gear.
Try that and switch it to channel B and see if that fixes the problem. So if it was a computer problem, hasn't fixed the problem, so we go back to auto. None of those things has fixed the problem. So left engine now, left engine master, I would turn it off. That would then feather that prop. I'm going to simulate feathering that prop by bringing some power back, because you'd have less drag when you feather the prop. I've now got less drag. I'm simulating that, and I can now bring the right engine back to max continuous. It's been in max power. You don't want to have it there for more than 5 minutes. So I'm max continuous on the right engine now. I need a little bit less rudder now that I've got less drag from that failed engine. And at this point, I can put the autopilot back on. So let's get the autopilot back on. And the autopilot's flying the plane. I've got my left engine dead. I've got my left engine master simulated off. I'm feeding. I had crossfeed on here. But now I'd say, okay, what have I missed? Let's pull up a checklist, and we'll go to the emergency checklist here.
295, contact me 1239.
And what it says is, what's your emergency? So engine failure during takeoff, engine failure in flight, and engine shutdown. That's what we're dealing with here. If airspeed is below VMCA, that's red line, we're well above that. If airspeed is above VMCA, which we are, our airspeed's 132 knots at the moment, so we've got good airspeed. Power, increased to maximum, we did that. Airspeed, minimum VY single engine, 85, which is 89 knots on this one. That's our blue line speed, we're well above that. Gears up, we check that. Flaps are up, we check that, so we don't have unnecessary drag. Power lever for the affected engine, we reduced it to verify, so we did that. Engine master of the affected engine, we've turned off. We did some checks to see if we could recover the situation, but we couldn't, so we've turned it off. Okay, the power in the good engine is now up to max continuous. We don't want to have it above max continuous and leave it in full power, because we'll end up killing the good engine by overworking it. So that's now max continuous. Alternator for the dead engine, we would now turn off. So the alternator switch here for the left engine, we turn off, and that's to stop that basically that alternator's just sucking energy, and it doesn't need to be, so we turn it off. I'm going to leave it on though. Fuel pump for the dead engine, we would turn off. Now I have already, I've turned it on, but I will turn it off at this point. Back to off, so both fuel pumps are off. And fuel selector for the dead engine, we would actually shut the fuel off on the dead engine. What I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to bring it back on, because I don't want to be running on crossfeed for too long and end up with an imbalance. So I've got both my fuel selectors both on. and that's the checklist complete. So now we'd sit back here, and we're getting 100 and a TAS of about just under 160 knots. And we've got a ground speed of 142. We've got a fairly strong headwind of 16 knots. But we're cruising along perfectly fine on one engine. At 10,000 feet, we're clearing all terrain, no problems. And we could fly like this all day long. And you can see that it's really not a big deal in a twin like this to have an engine failure. It wasn't abrupt, it wasn't violent, it was all pretty calm. And you'd basically shut that engine down. What would have happened is with the engine master off, it would have feathered and it would be basically sitting in a stationary feathered position. And we'd be cruising along perfectly fine on one engine. We'd just fly to the next suitable airport and land. That's it. What I also like to do on these, actually what I'll do is I'll just recover that. So I'll bring the alternate air off again. I'm going to bring the other engine back in, and I'm going to bring some trim back out, rudder trim. And we'll just bring that other engine back. We'll just use the autopilot. It's handling it fine. But what I will do, once I've got both engines back to about 88%, it's pretty good, it's where we were before. I'll just let things stabilise for a second, and then what I'll do is I'll turn the autopilot off. Okay, and we'll just make sure our trim is not sitting out. So, you know, because you can often kind of think you've reset it, but actually it's sitting out, and the autopilot and the yaw damper's having to correct for that, and you're just having unnecessary drag for for the next 2 hours of flight. So that's all looking good. The ball's centered, and so we can bring that autopilot back on, and everything's now reset. So air's back to normal, pumps are both off, we've brought our fuel back to normal, everything's been reset. And that's pretty much it to the engine failure, the memory items, the checklist items. It's pretty straightforward. Another thing I like to do on these long flights, especially obviously when there's no passengers, is just kind of work through what would I do if different failure scenarios occurred. So, you know, like what would I do if the oil pressure right now just started to drop on one of the engines? And I saw, as part of my sort of routine checks when I run around and check the gauges, what would I do if I saw the oil pressure starting to drop on one of the engines? So, well, I'd go, okay, well, is there a checklist for that? Your sort of initial reaction is, well, maybe just reduce the power on that engine. But here we go, abnormal operations, indications outside of the green range. So there's a range of, I might actually just take a bit of video of this. So I'll sort of walk you through. So here you go, so here's the checklist. So, you know, you've got coolant temperature high, coolant temperature low, oil temperature high, low. Actually, sorry, I haven't actually started recording, there you go. You know, coolant, oil temperature high and low, oil pressure high and low, fuel temperature, volts low, and RPM high. So these are the different sort of out of range options. So let's go, our oil pressure is low, it's dropping. So let's see, what would we do? Well, power unaffected engine, let's reduce it. That was our sort of initial thought, is you just reduce the power, less, you know, work it less hard, and be prepared for loss of oil and an engine failure, land at the nearest suitable airfield. Well, we've just been through what happens if you do have an engine failure. It's not a massive drama. So, so let's have a look at maybe another one. So, what would I do if I was coming in to land and I couldn't get the gear down? Let's have a look. What would we do? So, you've got emergency procedures up here, which is what we just did for engine. Let's have a look at emergency procedures for landing gear. So, okay, we could have a gear unsafe warning, so the red light doesn't extinguish, sorry. The manual extension, gear up landing, landing with defective main tyre, landing with defective brake. So, if we couldn't get the gear down, we'd be probably trying to do a manual extension of the landing gear, so let's have a look at that. Okay, so airspeed, max 162, gear indicator lights. We test the lights, so press the test button and see if the lights work. That's this one here. Okay. Electric master, we check we've got power turned on, the bus voltage is normal, the circuit breakers are, haven't tripped, the gear selector's down, the manual extension handle, which is down here. This is the manual extension handle. You pull it, and then you've got a max airspeed of 110 after that, and then you check that you get the 3 green lights coming on here once you pull that manual extension. So that's a couple of different things. It's good just to, on these longer flights, just sort of quiz yourself on what are you going to do if these different scenarios happen, and you just get familiar with where they are in the checklist as well, which is good, because if an emergency does happen, you feel a bit, you can feel a bit flustered, and you can miss stuff, and you're not checking things properly. But if you've been through it and you've run through the checklist numerous times before, you know there's a checklist item for this. You know that it's roughly where it is in the menu, and you can just easily just pull it up, take your time, work through the checklist, don't panic, and generally most issues can be resolved. And if it ends with a single engine being shut down, well, you just saw it's not the end of the world. Just keep flying. It's actually relatively straightforward to continue flying on one engine. The performance of the plane was pretty good on one engine, and so not a big deal.
Clear the Morgo 3 Alpha, arrival runway 30, flight level 370, velocity 594.
Okay, welcome back, guys. Well, we've been flying for, I don't know, maybe 2.5 hours or so now, a bit over 2.5 hours. And it's all been pretty relaxing, really. The weather's been very nice, smooth air, no turbulence, and it's the only issue I've had is 17 knots of headwind pretty much the entire way, when there was only about 7 knots forecasted. So our ground speed's been slower than expected the whole way, which has really led to the trip taking a bit longer than I would have liked. But other than that, I can't complain. It's all pretty comfortable in this plane, really. We are currently on the map here. You can see we've passed Bendigo and Swan Hill out to the right. We are basically only about 25 minutes from top of descent.
Just 737 contact.
Horsham is the next town we're going to fly over. I can start to hear radio calls occasionally at Narracourt, so we're getting closer now. I just wanted to thank everyone. Last time I put a video up, I got really good response from people, and also I demonstrated the Diamond Air Taxis website. In fact, I've now got a shirt, a Diamond Air Taxi shirt, which you may be able to see. And since that video, a lot of you guys went from the video to have a play with the website. And, the amount of traffic and amount of searches that were done on the website just spiked enormously after that video. So I just want to thank everyone for taking the time and having a look, having a play with searches. I've got searches all over the place. And in fact, I'm using now ChatGPT. I wanted to show you a report that it's created from the data that gets downloaded from those searches. But just things like the top routes that have been searched. I mean, there's a lot of different routes that people are searching, but the top route by far seems to be Bankstown to Canberra. And then the second most popular route seems to be Canberra back to Bankstown. I don't know whether that's connected to that video or just that's actually a popular route. A lot of the main routes, Sydney to Melbourne, Sydney to Gold Coast, they seem to be featuring pretty high. But it's interesting. Probably, I think about 40% of the flights people are searching for are one way, 60% return. And I think, I look forward to you guys going further with that. I look forward to seeing some bookings coming into the system. I am getting quite a few bookings already, but you know, like we've got a few planes on the system now. Keen to see some of you guys come for a flight with us. Use us as a taxi. It's the intention. Bring some friends along and go to a country town or something for a day out. It's just such a beautiful way to spend a day. You know, you could get 2 couples or something like that and jump on board for a 1 hour flight out to a regional town like Mudgee or Orange or somewhere like that. It doesn't cost much really when you split it between 4 people. Go and have a day out, go to a winery, tour around the you know, the markets and whatever's going on in those towns, and come back whenever you're ready in the afternoon back to Sydney. And it's just such a memorable and you know, something different. It's quite accessible. It's not ridiculously expensive. You split it between a few people, and you know, I look forward to seeing some of you guys on board and coming out for a flight. Anyway, just want to thank you guys, and we're you know, not too far away from top of descent now. I'll get a bit of a break on the ground at Naracoorte. Hopefully there's not too much traffic in the circuit, because I'm planning on a straight-in approach, but I can change that if we need to. Anyway, we'll probably talk a little bit more as we get closer to the ground, and but anyway, till then. Okay guys, well, it's a stunning afternoon here in southwestern Victoria here. We don't have far to go now. We're approaching top of descent. We're literally over the top of Horsham right now, and we're making our final turn to direct to Naracoorte. We're about 5 minutes before we start descent. We might just see if we can get the weather here on the phone. See how we go.
Information service, Naracoorte Airport, time 0507 Zulu, wind 150 degrees, magnetic at 9 knots, variable between 140 and 200 degrees, magnetic, temperature 24, dew point 9, QNH 1018 hectopascals, rainfall nil, automated weather information service, Naracoorte Airport.
Okay, there's the weather. We're listening into the CTAF already. Looks like we're going to be using runway 08. So I was going to fly the approach and just do a straight-in approach, runway 26, but the wind sort of is now favouring the other direction. Not massively, but the benefit of joining the circuit and landing the other direction is that the parking is down this end, so it'll mean I don't need to turn around. It is a narrow runway, so what happens is you generally, in a plane like this, you kind of got to go to the end of the runway and then turn around in a little wider area at the end of the runway and come back. So rather than doing that, I'll join a left downwind for runway 08, and that'll just mean I don't have to turn around. So we're ready to go. We're 4 minutes top of descent. We'll request traffic for descent shortly unless they give it to us. I'll just leave the cameras rolling.
Section 2, 1 minute, time.
I don't want to get distracted with cameras on the way down, so I'll just leave it rolling. I might edit it so it's not so boring. The other benefit of joining the circuit is that we get visibility of the runway from the downwind, which you know, just if there's anything on the runway that's shouldn't be there, or you know, aircraft not calling on the radio, or perhaps you know, animals, that kind of stuff, you get a better view. You can also see the windsock. So it's probably a better approach today. And it's a visual approach, so they're a very visual day. And it's sometimes with IFR you tend to just get in the habit of flying instrument approaches all the time, which is good, but you can lose the basic skills of the visual approach. So I think it's good to mix it up. If you've got a visual day, A visual approach is generally less track miles, more efficient, and joining the circuit with all the other VFR aircraft out there will be more expected to them as well, rather than just joining a 10-mile final straight in.
Estimated overhead time 18.
Center X-ray 62, request traffic for descent.
X-ray 62, there's no reported on-site traffic for descent.
X-ray 62, and we're leaving 10,000.
X-ray 62.
Okay, we are coming up to 30 miles now. Narrow court in descent.
Max speed above 10,000.
And we're just going to be joining the circuit, visual approach, runway 08, so I'll make a radio call shortly.
Level 340.
18 Alpha Bravo, runway 16.
I'm looking on here to see if there's any traffic that may be reporting traffic there. There's nothing on there. Doesn't mean there's nothing around though. Slow things down a little bit now. We're starting to get lower, and you start to get a few bumps as you get close to the ground. I like to sort of do a fairly high-speed descent for most of the way, but then the last bit you need to slow things down. Because we're joining the circuit, all the usual circuit procedures apply in terms of things like communication in the circuit, where we put the gear and flap down. All of that happens just as a normal circuit. What I like to do is, once I'm visual with the runway, basically then I'll break right and join the downwind, and then I'll use OBS mode here to set up the runway direction. That then gives me a cross-track error of how wide my circuit is, which is just useful data. I mean, you're doing it all visual anyway, but it's just useful backup data, especially in low visibility. But we've got great weather today. It's not needed, but it's just good to have a standard process, I think.
Traffic narrow court, X-ray 62, Diamond Air 62. We are currently 25 miles to the east, on descent through 4,300, inbound. We're going to join a left downwind for runway 08, and joining the circuit time 34, narrow court.
Narrow court, aerodrome.
Good to hear that. You know that you're at the right place, you've got the right frequency. And it also gives you confidence that you've been listening on the right frequency all this time. So if there were other aircraft, you would have heard them. So there's probably no other aircraft in the area. That's what my screen's showing me. There is one over to the left departing, but we completed our descent checks. I'll just double check. Good to make sure we didn't leave anything unticked. That's all done. Flaps, gear, rudder trim are the last checks. And we'll do those checks on final. Just keeping the speed up as much as I can, but staying in the green, not in the yellow. Just in these light bumps. Such a nice day out here. It's quite the opposite to a few days ago when I was here. It was pouring down with rain. We're in complete IMC. We had to do the approach. It was low visibility. And then look at it today, amazing. We're about to cross the border into South Australia. It's a fairly small runway, it's not that obvious until you get fairly close.
Flight level 170 and negative. Velocity 1326.
Velocity 1326 is issued, time.
Traffic narrow court at X-ray 62, Diamond DA62, currently 15 miles to the east. On descent through 3000, inbound, joining a left downwind for runway 08, circuit time 34, narrow court.
And we're now 10 miles, so you start to scan where 10 miles would be.
Flight 568 Melbourne, Centre, good day.
Looking for a bit of a clearing. And looking for something oriented the way the runway would be. It's also good just to look at what the wind's doing, because you might be crabbing, and so it may be that the runway's there because you're crabbing into the wind, but we've got light winds, so it's pretty much straight ahead. I think I've got it in sight. That probably would be about 10 miles. You probably can't see it on the camera there, but long as one of us can see it. Main thing. Sometimes useful also when you're doing a visual approach to have the visual map up. And just things like where's the town with reference to the airport. So I know the towns, I can see a town there. So that just gives me, again, more certainty that that is the airport because I can see a runway and it's in the right position with respect to the town. So, you know, highly likely that's it. And it's straight off our nose and it's about 7 miles away. So now that we're visual and we're confident that that's the runway, what we'll do is we'll go to VS and we'll go to heading mode and we'll go to OBS. We'll tune this up for the runway direction, 08. And that's now oriented in the direction of the runway. It just helps us with the accuracy of our circuit.
Now record traffic X-ray 62, Diamond DA62, 5 miles to the east, 1,600 on descent, joining a left downwind for runway 08. Now record.
We'll start to manoeuvre to join that that circuit. All right, everything's ready for landing.
Feeling 1295.
Here and flap to go.
And velocity.
Flying over the town of Naracoorte by the look of it. I didn't actually get to go into the town. I just didn't have enough time. I don't think I'll have enough time today either. It's half an hour behind, so it's 4 o'clock local time. By the time I get fuel and have a break and everything, I think I'll probably just hang around the airport. They've got an Aero Club there.
Naracoorte traffic and X-ray 62. Whiskey Tango uniform, a Cessna 172 is taxiing this time at Naracoorte for runway 20 for circuits.
Copy the aircraft at Naracoorte, X-ray 62 is just downwind now for runway 08, full stop, Naracoorte.
Whiskey Tango uniform.
Okay, Whiskey Tango uniform. Yeah, so this is now telling me how wide my circuit is. So I've now got about 1.5 miles. Usually quite a good sort of width. I'll just correct for that. We're coming up a beam now. Speed's good. Let's get the gear down. He's taxiing for one of the dirt strip there. We're at circuit height now. Our speed's good for flap, so we'll have first stage of flap. We'll get the autopilot off there, we'll just let it trim. And we'll bring the power back now for descent. Trim for 100 knots and flight director off. Looking for traffic.
Naracoorte, traffic X-ray 62 is left base, runway 08, full stop, Naracoorte.
Traffic Lucendale, helicopter. Yankee
so 100 knots.
Tango's lifted.
Just let it
for a low level circuit, not above 800.
Look for any adjustments needed due to the wind. Wind's pretty calm. So it should be about right. Looking for the other aircraft taxiing. And looking for any traffic coming in on final. Scanning across, can't see anything there. And remembering it's a narrow runway, so it'll look a bit smaller. And that'll put us out a little bit probably. So we're going to go for our last stage of flap now. We've got the runway made and tiny bit high, so.
Naracoorte, traffic X-ray 62 is final runway 08, full stop Naracoorte.
So we've got lights, we've got pumps, we've got 3 green, no red, trim and landing flap. We're set for landing, the runway is clear and we're in communication with the other aircraft taxiing. Okay, I got them now. Coming down to VREF now. Speed looks good. Got a few birds to watch out for. We're down. Torpedo off. Everything else we'll do once we're clear of the runway. And we'll let this aircraft know when we're clear of the runway.
Narracourt traffic X-ray 62 is clear of runway 08. Narracourt.
Okay, landing lights off. Pump 1, pump 2, and flaps up. And we'll taxi around to the fuel. Jet A's down there. Here's the Aero Club. This halfway's got a max 18 metre wingspan, which is good for about 15. And we'll shut down. Thanks again for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please check out the website again, diamondairtaxis.com, and book a flight. Thanks. See ya.